Hey, my name is Brant, and I want to talk about having a relentless spirit. I can recall being relentless about some of my own goals in life, and I'm a radio guy now. I wanted to be a baseball announcer. I love baseball. I can't get enough baseball. So I played every year growing up as a kid and never got a hit. Not from my first year, not during my second year. My third year, I got no hits. My fourth year, I got no hits. I kept playing into my fifth year when I got no hits. But then my sixth year, I also got no hits. And then my seventh and eighth years, I got no hits. And I finished 0 for my entire life at the sport of baseball. And I use that as an example because I loved it. I loved baseball. I just wanted to be good at it, but I can't see very well. I have some eye problems and neurological conditions and whatnot that prevented me from being good at it. But I just kept doing it because I loved it. So I'd keep going to practice, keep going to games, keep working at it. There's something about being relentless that's actually beautiful and poetic, even when it doesn't end well. But if I'm relentless about the right things, that's a very good thing. The problem is for a lot of us, we don't see what relentless spirit really means, like in the best sense of the word. So I wanted to just throw out a few ideas about what relentless spirit really looks like in a good way, not necessarily in a flailing way like my baseball career. Here's the thing, like with sports, we all see highlight culture. We're big into highlights. We have ESPN, we have a million sports networks, we've got Twitter and whatnot. Well, they just capture just a segment of somebody's athletic experience just at the very top. We see Steph Curry hitting 3-pointers from out near half court and think, wow, that's incredible. What a talent. What we don't see is all the practice. What we don't see is what people go through every day. Larry Bird used to shoot 500 free throws a day. We don't see that. We don't see LeBron James in practice. We don't see people just shooting over and over. We don't see Michael Jordan every offseason. In Michael Jordan's career, he would take the thing he was the worst at and try to make it the best part of his game. For instance, he couldn't go left originally when he was in the NBA. He just wasn't good at going left, so he worked on his left hand so that he could go left, just relentlessly attacking. You don't see that. We just see highlights. And so we can get fooled into thinking that's what greatness is. It's not. It's not. It's faithfulness. It's showing up every day. It's refusing to stop. When something's good and you know it's good, you just keep doing it. For a lot of us, we might dream of highlight type lives, but that's not the way life is for anybody. It's not just a highlight. I bring this up too because I think about my son. I have a boy who, like me, isn't terribly social. He's just not gifted socially. That's not his thing. And he had a hard time making friends when he went to college, and before college too. He's like me, he's kind of a nerd. He likes to read and write. Before he went to college, he decided to join the military in ROTC to pay for his college. So he went to Cal Berkeley, which is a tough school, and he joined the ROTC. Well, the problem is once he joined the ROTC, they said, well, we have some fitness standards. Well, fitness isn't his thing, and it had never been. And my boy, Justice, could not do, as a senior in high school, couldn't do a single push-up and couldn't do a single sit-up. It was arduous for him. It was impossible. But he was determined. And much to my dismay, in a way, because I thought, I don't think he's going to be able to do this fitness thing. He would just put his P90X DVD in on the TV, and he started this exercise program. And I'm not going to do a commercial for the exercise program, but he would do a half-up push-up the first day, and then he would get one the second day, and he would just show up every day. He would just keep doing it. He would line up, keep doing it. Then he was able to do a sit-up, 2 sit-ups, 3 sit-ups. People look at him now, he's in perfect shape. He can whip out, I don't know how many hundreds of sit-ups and push-ups. He's in the top 1% in the military in terms of physical fitness. He wins all the awards. And people could look at him now and go, wow, what a fit specimen. I wish I could be like that. Like, you have no idea. He just kept showing up. He was relentless because he wanted something. He wanted to excel. He wanted to be great in the military. He wanted to make it. He wanted to pay for his college. He got 2 degrees in college. He came home in his freshman year. I'll never forget this. Because he was struggling socially and he was lonely. He came home and was very sad. And this was midway through his freshman year, and his mom, my wife, and I told him, like, look, Jess, you can quit. It's okay. In fact, you can come home. We can go to community college for a couple of years. He was saying, I am very lonely. This is the hardest thing in the world. Like, look, we'll start you some other school. You can still succeed. It's okay. And I remember him looking at me, and he was crying at the time. He doesn't mind me sharing this story. But he said, through his tears, I will not quit. And obviously that's a vivid memory for me. Like, I was suggesting, just, you don't have to do this. There's another way. And his response is, I'm not going to quit. And he thought he was the worst cadet in the Air Force. And he wasn't going to quit. And he wasn't going to quit school. He winds up getting 2 degrees at Berkeley, top student in his department in a very tough school. And now he's an intel officer, and he's in perfect shape because he just kept showing up and kept doing push-ups and sit-ups. Like, there's something about being relentless about something you want. And that brings me to this point. The kingdom of God is actually beautiful. And once you get a glimpse of it, once you start to understand all these stories that Jesus was telling, you really want it. At least I want it. It's up to us. But then there's something about, okay, I want this kingdom so much, I'm going to seek it first, and the rest of life will take care of itself. This is what we should be relentless and faithful about. This is the thing, the vision that we want, is to be a part of this kingdom where God's rule and reign works through us, and we make it happen on earth as it is in heaven. God uses us that way. It's an awesome thing. It's beautiful, but you got to want it. That's the thing to be relentless about. And that's where faithfulness matters the most. There's a guy, I was just thinking about this too, because I work with a hospital network, in addition to being a radio guy. That's why we have soundproofing equipment. We're in my radio studio, but I work with a hospital network that's global. It's called Cure International. And we have hospitals that heal kids with correctable disabilities. It's an important work. It's amazing. It's all about Jesus too. It's fascinating. But there's a guy who works at our hospital in Uganda who, and I'm not making this up, you're gonna think I'm making this up. He gets to work every day. Now, he found a great job at the hospital. He's a groundskeeper, and he loves his job, and he knows it's important what he does. But he lives a long way away. And he didn't want to make his family leave their traditional village there in Uganda. So he rides a bike to work 4 hours each direction. Every day, he's on a bike 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours after work, and he works with his hands and he does manual labor all day long. He's been doing this for 15 years. I mean, that's faithfulness, and it's impressive, but he loves his job. He knows it's important. By the way, he's about 65 years old. He looks like he's about 40, and he's totally muscular and ripped and totally lean. You might expect after riding a bike for that much, but there's something about that relentlessness of faithfulness. Every day, he just keeps showing up. It's not a highlight thing. It's a daily doing what you need to do, what's in front of you every day. There's something about that faithfulness and relentlessness that God, I know he rewards when we're seeking his kingdom, first and foremost. It's a beautiful thing. Look, you do it with work, possibly. You show up every day on time. I've been doing this radio thing for a long time. Many days I don't want to do it. I don't feel like it, but I keep showing up. I do it because I know it's important, but also because it's a source of income. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. We can see the reward. The same thing happens with following Jesus. We can start to see this faithfulness will lead to a reward, and Jesus told us as much. And he also said, if we're faithful and we actually do the stuff that he told us to do, if we actually obey what he said for us to do, it's like building our lives, our house on a rock instead of on shifting sand. So no matter what circumstances come around, we're fine because we've been faithfully building on what he told us to do. It's about obedience. It's faithful obedience, which honestly gets a bad rap. People think obedience is boring. It's not. It makes life better. It makes life a lot better. There's something beautiful about faithfulness. So I also wanted to tell you something else about relentlessness. That is, relentlessness, I have found, embraces imperfection. And what I mean by that, we get discouraged really easily. Let's say you're a smoker and you're trying to quit, and maybe you go 3 months without a cigarette, and then you have a bad evening, and you smoke a couple cigarettes, you smoke a pack. It's very normal for us to think, okay, I've blown it, so so now what? I'm ashamed. I lapsed back into this thing I didn't want to be involved with. It could be It could be pornography. It could be attitudes towards our family where we lost our temper when we'd been doing better and now we blew it. Like there's a shame that comes in, but there's an aspect of relentlessness that understands it doesn't mean you blew everything. It doesn't mean you have to start from zero again. Like those 3 months without a cigarette happened. It's like running a marathon. If you fall into a ditch, it doesn't mean you have to go back to the start. We're imperfect. We're going to blow things, but there's a faithfulness and a beauty to saying, okay, that was not good, but I'm refocusing again and I'm trying this again. There's something beautiful about that instead of giving up in shame. Imperfection is okay. In fact, imperfection can help you get stuff done. And what I mean by this is embracing imperfection. I write books, but I wanted to for a long time and never did. It was finally when I decided I can't write a perfect book that I was able to write a book. I actually went to the coffee shop, no lie, like for my first book, I went to the coffee shop, I sat down and decided, okay, Brant, you're gonna write a really bad chapter about something. It's gonna be bad, but at least you're gonna do it. At least you're gonna show up and actually do it instead of putting it off. And I did, and it wasn't that bad. And I wrote another chapter the next week, and every following Saturday I would write a chapter. Regardless, like I'm just gonna get it done. I'm just gonna keep showing up and I'm gonna keep doing the thing and being faithful to what I think God wants me to do. And it wasn't that bad. And the publisher liked it. And it's getting close to 100,000 copies sold. I mean, and it was from me saying, I'm gonna be imperfect, but I at least wanna be faithful to what I think I'm supposed to do. So I hope that makes sense. Relentlessness means you can actually be okay with imperfection and keep being thankful for what God's given you. One other thing about relentlessness, I want to make sure I communicate as best I can. Relentlessness does not depend on my emotions in the moment. It's not about whether I feel something. Like, same thing with a job. I don't base whether I go to work on whether I feel good about it or not. I just do it. Well, the same thing happens with my relationship with God. If I'm seeking first the kingdom, it's not about my emotions, which is a wonderful thing because I found this is true with a lot of men especially. We tend to associate being spiritual with feelings. So if you're a spiritual person, you're somebody who really understands, really loves worship music, and you really emote, and you see people like that, they get their hands up, and they're really feeling it. That's awesome for those people. That's not me. And I used to beat myself up for that, and I would see people that would have emotional reactions to things or Christian things or spiritual, like, wow, what a spiritual person. But in the Bible, spirituality is not emotion. It's never emotion in the Bible. It can be good to be emotional, that's great. If you are, awesome. But that's not what spirituality is, according to Jesus. Spirituality, according to Jesus, is me finally being obedient, actually doing the right thing. So I don't have to beat myself up for not feeling God's presence, or I don't feel this amazing emotion when I'm doing something. I don't have to think God's abandoned me because I don't feel like He's around. That's just my feelings. Feelings come and go. They're based on what I ate that day, then whether I got a nap, whether the St. Louis Cardinals won or lost that day. I mean, my emotions are all up in the air. Whether I've had enough to drink, like I'm hydrated or not, whether I've exercised the last couple of days, like all that stuff goes into our emotions. It's not indicative of how God feels about us or whether He's still around. So to me, that's very freeing. And I get to see, wait a second, I can still pursue God regardless of how I'm feeling today, just like I do a job or anything else. It's just out of faithfulness. And there's something beautiful about that over time. There's something impressive about just showing up every time, whether I feel it or not. Like, God, I don't feel like praying right now, but here I am. I'm going to do it again this morning and tomorrow morning and the next morning. I think God honors that. Just like marriage. Like, I don't always feel in love with my wife, and she doesn't always feel in love with me, but she keeps doing stuff for me. She's incredibly kind. She keeps showing up. There's something beautiful about this. It's called obedience. And God does promise a reward. And in fact, at the end, if you read the Bible, where He talks about, in the very end, when He's looking at us, and He looks at us and says, Well done, my good and faithful servant. Faithful. Something beautiful about this. Just relentlessly going back and doing the right thing and being faithful and still pursuing. He also encourages, by the way, speaking of relentlessness, some people don't believe this, but it's in the Bible. So I'm going to win this argument. If someone's like, it doesn't really say that, it does. Jesus talks about you can be relentless with God with prayer. If there's something you want, you really need. And he says, don't just ask once. And he uses an example of a widow who goes to a judge's home. And so she goes to his home and bangs on the door because she needs justice in her case, whatever it is. And he won't answer the door, so she comes back, bangs some more. He's telling her, go away, what's the problem? Well, I need help. She is relentless. She has no status in the culture. She's not somebody he wants to impress. He doesn't care. And she just keeps going back and banging on the door. And Jesus uses that as an example to show us how to relate to God. Like, be relentless. Keep going back. And God honors that. Which is shocking for some people, because I think we think he's like a computer where you enter in the data once, and if he says no, then you don't get it, and that's all there is. But he's saying God wants us to be relentless in our relationship with him, even to the point of being annoying. Because that's what that widow is. She's actually annoying the judge. So again, you can be like, we're not supposed to annoy God. Well, look, all I'm saying is that was Jesus' story. And he's honoring the people who have a childlike faith that would just keep going back to a God who loves them, to a Father who loves them. He wants us to do this. There's something about being faithful, just keep showing up and being relentless in our relationship with him. Just keep doing it. I want to encourage you to do that because it matters so much. And ultimately, I mean, speaking of being legacy-minded, I think back about my own life and the guys who have had an influence on me. There's one in particular. My parents got divorced when I was young, and then remarried each other, and then divorced again. And there was one guy who came to our little town who was a believer. He was early 20s, and he would play football with me and my friends, and he would talk to me about Jesus, and he just kept showing up. And I don't even know why, other than he loved me for whatever reason. And that guy's got a legacy. Like, that guy was instrumental in me knowing who God is. Despite all the stuff I went through, he just kept showing up. So I've seen a lot of fancy things on stage because I've grown up in the church and my dad was a pastor and I'm in the Christian entertainment industry. I've seen a lot of fancy things on stage, and those are highlight things. That's neat for people. But that guy just kept showing up. And in the end, that is faithfulness. And in the end, we hear, well done, good and faithful servant. That's relentless spirit.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you were blessed by the material. We also want to remind you that there are several great ways to make sure you're staying up to date on our content as part of our 360 Legacy Plan. First, subscribe to this channel by clicking subscribe below. You can also download our incredible new app in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Just search Legacy Minded Men. And finally, visit our website at legacymindedmen.org for more information on what we believe, upcoming events, and how to join a group. Thanks again for watching.